about recognizing the risk. Okay? Recognizing the risk. Well, what risk? Well, there's lots of risks.
Yes.
Okay? But let's first of all say, as usual as we go to first of all here, we're going to take a look at what's the definition of risk. So it's a probability or a threat of damage, injury, liability, loss, or any other negative occurrence that is caused by external or internal vulnerabilities. And that may be avoided through preemptive action. So risks can come from outside of you. Risks can come from you, things you do. Okay? But the thing about risks is that they can be avoided by preemptive actions.
Amen.
All right? So, where are we going to find risk? Or as I said, where is risk? Where are we going to get it located? Right? First of all, let's look at large corporations. I work for a corporation. It's a financial corporation. Risk is a very, very big part of their business. Okay? They hire people and pay them lots of money, risk managers, risk analysts, because they want people who can investigate risk. They want to look and see, okay, if we do this, what's the benefit? What's the risk? If this goes really well, what's going to happen? If this tanks completely, what's going to happen? What's our exposure? How much damage can we find ourselves in if this doesn't go well? Now, it's reputed that in the auto industry, that there's an acceptable number of fatalities before a recall occurs. So there's a certain number that if 1 or 2 fatalities happen, you know, but if more than a certain number, then a recall has to be issued. I've read that in several places. I don't know if it's true, I don't know if it's rumor, but it wouldn't surprise me. The cost of a recall is extremely expensive. This is what, risk is determining, how we're not going to get damaged by this.
Right.
So people who work in risk, they run what they call what-if scenarios. What if we do this? What could happen? What if we made this decision, we purchased this company, it's in this place, and companies are always trying to find out how good the company's doing. This is where insider trading comes in, where someone has information about the company that they shouldn't be talking about. It's inside information, but another company wants to know about it, And it's, oh, well, let's participate in this and make some decisions, when down the road they find out that was a really bad decision to make, when the SEC comes knocking on the door and starts, fining them several $1 million or, more than that because of their decision. But it was a risk. Okay, so we're understanding the whole thing about risk. Most time, companies will adopt what they call maximums, that they're not going to go back, they're not going to go past. Okay, so the maximum acceptable risk. All right. If they don't, if they just kind of blindly go into a situation, they'll wind up in bankruptcy. They'll wind up destroying themselves.
Right.
Okay, because in order to really succeed, you have to take a certain amount of risk. All right. Getting here this morning, you took risk. Okay? Getting up, putting your feet on the floor into your little bunny slippers, you took a risk. Okay? Maybe if you laid in bed and not bothered getting up today at all, something wouldn't have happened. And we can look at that. When something bad happens, we have a tendency to go, wow, if I hadn't done that, this wouldn't have happened, right? If I hadn't gone down that street, I mightn't have hit that car. That deal. So, but because we can't tell the future, these kind of things happen. Okay, we have to obviously work with risk from the point of view of what we see, what we know, what we understand. So, as far as we're concerned, risk, as I say, exists in every part of our life, right? Sometimes it's large, sometimes it's small. It's like, well, if I have cornflakes as opposed to Raisin Bran this morning, what's the risk?
Right.
Well, anyone who's had a lot of Raisin Bran, there could be a risk attached to it, okay? But it's a small risk. It's negligible, okay? Then there's other things where it's like, listen, if I'm going to If I'm in recovery and I'm going to go walking into a bar, what's my risk? Okay, my risk is a lot larger. My risk is a lot bigger. So what risk are we talking about this morning? Well, for us, obviously, it's a risk that we're not going to pick up and use.
Right.
Okay? But with us, we've all got different amounts of time clean and sober. So for the person who walks into the room who's got a week clean and sober, the biggest risk is that he's going to go out and pick up and use. For someone who's got 20 years clean and sober, the risk is less that they're actually going to walk out the door and go pick up and use, but that they're going to do something that could lead down that road. You know what I mean? They're going to make some kind of a decision, and there's another class that we have on the site called the 11 Steps to Relapse. And you can see as you read through them, there's lots of things that happen long before you ever relapse.
Right.
And like for an example, one of the things that can happen is you start separating yourself from other people. Like Troy talked about, where you separate yourself from friends, from people who can actually help you.
Right.
So you have to really look at yourself. Is there a risk of me doing that? What am I wind up doing with that? So we also want to look at, again, as same as a company, it's a risk versus reward. If I'm going to take this risk, what's my potential reward here? What do I gain from this? I mean, and again, that can take, am I going to eat the whole pizza? Or am I just going to have 2 slices? Well, if I eat the whole pizza, what's my potential reward? Well, a couple extra pounds, feeling sick as a dog, feeling bad about yourself, or maybe not. So it's these kind of decisions that we make them all the time.
Yes.
We go through and we make this stuff all the time, and a lot of times we don't even think about it. But that can unfortunately lull us into a sense of security, where we stop thinking about them permanently. Where when we come to some really big risks, we haven't trained ourselves at looking at these things and kind of going, listen, I need to think this thing through.
That's right.
Okay? I need to actually look at this and kind of go, wait a minute, what could potentially happen here? And failure to do this is going to destroy us. It has really a very solid ability to destroy us. And because really we choose to either address or ignore it. You know what I mean? As we move through, we look at these things, we choose to either look at them, deal with them, address them, or just pretend they don't exist, right? The next thing we want to look at is recognizing the risks. Now, looking at the scriptures, right? A great example of recognizing the risk is in 2 Samuel 11. We're not going to turn over there, but you can look at it later. In 2 Samuel 11, what's that about? Anybody? David and? No, Bathsheba. Okay.
Different kind of risk.
But David and Goliath was also a risk, right? So when we read the situation, we read through about David and Bathsheba, right? What happened with David and Bathsheba? Well, David was unfaithful. He slept with another man's wife. Okay? But you see, the thing is, we have the ability to now be able to look at this story from up above.
Right.
We can see the whole thing just from not as we're traveling through it, but an overview. We can see the whole thing. So why did David wind up in that situation? Okay, and what we see is that one of the things it says in the very beginning of the of telling us about the story in there is that it says when the kings went out to war, David was home. He was hanging out doing nothing. Now David was known as a great known as a warmonger, but a great leader in war. Okay? He was out there in front. He was always out in front. He was at the point when whenever they went to do anything, David was out there leading the charge. So here was a situation where the kings are already going out to war, and David's just hanging out at the house. He's delegated, chilling, exactly. He's delegated his battles to someone else. So, a lot of times we can think along the lines of, when you're younger children, right? And you're going out to a supermarket, or you're going out somewhere, wherever you're going to wind up going, and what you say is you tell your child, stand there and do nothing. Or sit there and do nothing, because you figure You can't get into trouble if you're doing nothing, right? Okay? There's no way you can get into trouble if you're doing nothing. Well, David proved us wrong. It's that if you're doing nothing, it's actually for an adult, that's when you get into the most trouble. Is when you're doing nothing. See, that's the risk of doing nothing. Okay? Where it's a situation where he should have been out and fighting. He should have been out doing something. No, he's hanging around. He's looking at the neighbor's wife bathing. You know? When he should have been out there doing something else. So it's a situation of where, you know, doing nothing for David was a very costly mistake. Cost him a tremendous amount, not just in his relationship with God, but with his family. I mean, it messed up his family. Certainly shortened Uriah the Hittite's life. Okay? Certainly messed him up. So, you know, it's something where risky behavior is not always obvious. You know, you have to really, I think part of it is definitely praying for wisdom. And part of it is looking to see, okay, where's this going to go? One of the things we talk about is, and the men talk about it in group, I don't know if the women talk about it, but we talk about playing the whole movie. Okay? And I don't know, but, you know, sometimes when if I'm sleeping and I'm dreaming about something, I'm dreaming the same scene over and over again because it's a good scene. You know, it's almost like, you know, in a movie where they'll shoot the movie and then they'll show you the scene from another angle and then they'll do you the slow motion version of the same scene. Guys love that stuff. I don't know if women are into that kind of stuff, but guys love that kind of stuff. So our expression is play the movie to the end. Because too often we can get stuck in the good part of the movie. Okay? So when it comes to risk, what we're talking about and the things that I do and recognizing it is that I say to myself, well, there is no risk here because I'm only looking at a part of it. I'm only looking at a part of the situation. It's like, listen, my friends are having a party. I know there's going to be drink there, but you know something? I think I'm going to be fine. It's going to be a good time. It's going to be whatever, so I'm going to head out to the party. Okay? Now, that may be fine if you're 20 years in recovery or 10 years in recovery. But if you have a week in recovery, that's not a good idea. It's not sound. And what happens is you're not playing out the whole thing. How could this go? What's the worst case scenario that could happen from this? I worked with a guy at one point who had to do a presentation to the mayor of New York City. And his expression, which I thought was great, was he says, you know, there's one way this could go right and 20 ways this could go wrong. So he says, I don't think I'm going to do this presentation, you know. And it was a good idea, you know. And the thing is where he was recognizing the thing that, listen, this could go really badly wrong.
Right.
And not only could it go really badly wrong, but it could go really badly wrong from the point of destroying what I've built.
Right.
Okay? Yes. So that's where we have to be careful. When I myself would have friends that invite me out for drinks or whatever, I'll go. I don't like sitting or standing up next to a bar. I'll go out. But the moment I start to feel like this is out of my comfort zone, I'm gone.
Amen.
And people know that. It's like I say, listen, you know, if you turn around and I'm gone, don't feel insulted.
Right.
It was just a point that it was no longer wiser for me to be there.
Amen.
And this is my exit route.
Right.
You know? Because I understand, it's like, listen, I don't want to destroy what God has allowed me to build.
Amen.
And that can happen with one decision. You know, that can happen with one decision. If I go into a liquor store and I ask for a bottle of scotch, the guy behind the counter is not going to say, wait a minute, you're one of those Seor people, aren't you? We've been told not to sell you anything. As long as I've got a couple of bucks, I'm going to walk out of there with a bottle of something.
Right.
Okay? So it's not, I'm just one decision away from destroying all this. Right? And the other part too is we have to be honest with ourselves. And again, going back to what Troy shared about friendships, about needing friends.
Right.
We need friends. We need just not people who would go, oh, that's my friend. He's my friend because he's my discipling partner. He's my prayer partner. I look at Kevin. Kevin's my friend because Kevin will tell me the stuff I don't want to hear. Okay, and he has no problem telling it to me. You know, and it's like I need somebody like him. You know, and I have brothers in my life. Thank God that the group we attend, the guys who have no problem in telling me what I need to hear. And we need that. We need accountability. We need for that stuff to be clear, because a lot of times we're just not honest with ourselves.
Right.
When we come
Right.
into making a decision, into recognizing something behind a decision, we minimize the risk. You know, no, I don't think this is going to go all that wrong. I mean, I think people understand. And we will convince ourselves of some of the strangest things sometimes. I mean, you're sitting there and it makes perfect sense to you. And then you sit down and you talk to someone else and the person is sitting looking at you, mouth open, eyes
Right.
wide, going, like, what? You know, how can you even think this makes sense? And it's such a different place from where you are that it shakes you, it should shake you back into reality.
Right.
I kind of go, what the heck was I thinking? How far down the road does this bring me? You know, when we look at the situation of Balaam's donkey, right? Balaam's donkey, I love the story of Balaam's donkey, okay? Because here's this prophet, which it doesn't really give a whole lot of clarity of what he's going to do, but in some way he's disobeying God, okay? And God is trying to stop him. And his donkey talks to him. And the first question out of his mouth isn't, oh, a talking donkey. I've never seen one of those before. It's like, it doesn't even cross his mind. And he starts conversing with the donkey. I mean, if I have a cat at home. If my cat, I came in one night and I went, hey Mittens, and my cat went, yo, what's up, Harry? I would have to stop and look at that very closely. You go, gee, you know, that's never happened before. You'd be looking for like a candid camera or something, right? And I mean, here was the point where this guy was so sure of what he was doing and so wrong.
Wow.
That God caused an animal that never speaks normally, at least not in my life, not in my life, caused him to speak, to stop him. I mean, that's wild.
Yes.
It's so wild. And it's
good.
like, you know, so we may not have the talking donkey, but we can have people like Kevin.
Talking to Kevin.
So there's no, I am not trying to say anything about Kevin
Oh, they did?
whatsoever.
All right.
So the other thing that we need to understand too, guys, is we need to be able to accept our weaknesses. Okay? We need to understand that, listen, there's so many situations, so many places where we don't know what we're doing. We really, and we need to be honest about that and say, listen, I don't know what's the best decision here. Let me go ask somebody. Let me go find out what could go wrong here. Am I looking at the whole picture? Am I seeing everything that needs to be seen here? Or am I really just kind of like Balaam? Am I just looking at it the way I absolutely want to see it? We said, you know, we talk about some of the various risks that are out there, okay? Leadership. Leadership's a huge risk. That's one of the reasons why we really did away with it in CR. Is because, you know, if I'm sitting here leading everything, it's always the temptation for me not to get help. Because I have a certain look that I have to keep a certain position.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly not inclined that that's what goes on with leadership that we're aware of, but what I'm saying is that that's always the temptation. The Bible is very clear about it. It says that, you know, anyone who chooses to be a leader, says that their testing will be a lot more than someone who isn't.
Yes.
Okay? So it's a situation where, you know, we have to be even, in any kind of leadership, we have to be more careful.
Yeah.
With group, you know, we used to have CR leaders back in the days.
True.
We don't anymore, simply because anybody at any point sitting in that room needs help.
Right.
You know, you can't have that one person who people feel like, well, I really can't help that person. I can't challenge him or her on whatever I see in there because that's my leader.
Wow.
You know, that's a very unhealthy place to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Plus, it's unscriptural. It's unscriptural because, again, you know, Paul challenged Peter to his face.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if you were in the room at the time that happened, I'm sure a lot of people were nudging each other going, you see what's going on over here? You know, Paul was like going toe to toe with Peter,
Right.
who was, you know, by you know, no minimizing it, was the leader of the church at that point, you know. The other thing is self-confidence. You know, we have to be careful about the risk of self-confidence. It's like a balance. It's not good to have no self-esteem. It's not good to have too much self-esteem. It's keeping that balance. It's having a proper confidence in God and having a proper confidence in what God is doing in your life.
Amen.
Okay? And really keeping that balance. Because your understanding is like, listen, I don't need to make these decisions. God is in control. God will take care of it.
Right.
I don't need to make these decisions. You know, I don't need to do risky things. And I know, hey, it could be, it could go wrong very, very quickly here. Okay? Compromising situations we talk about. You know, getting ourselves into situations where, you know, you kind of look around and go, what am I doing here? How did I get myself here? I shouldn't be here. This is not good. You know, and whether it's a compromising situation with another person, whether it's a compromising situation with a different worldview, whether, you know, because you can wind up talking to somebody and they're talking to you all about the different, very worldly types of worldviews, and you're like standing there agreeing with them. And kind of, wait a minute, I don't agree with this.
Wow.
I don't believe this. What am I nodding my head for here, man? I need to speak out and say, no, that's not right. Because, you know, the person, you know, what it says, you know, the person who doesn't stand for anything falls for everything, right? Okay, so that's really key. Because in Romans 14:21, it talks about making sure that you stand. It says, those of you who think you stand, be careful in case you fall.
Wow.
Okay, so if you think you stand, make sure you're standing. Make sure it's not just your opinion that you're standing. Make sure that everyone around you that you know and knows you is telling you that you're standing for fear you fall. Right? Because, you know, that risk is always there.
Yep.
1 Corinthians 10:12. Sorry, 1 Corinthians 12:12 was about the for fear you fall. I'm sorry, I was giving the wrong scripture. 1 Corinthians 10:12 is about the fear you fall. Romans 14:21, sorry, is about making your brother fall. So what that is saying that you got to make sure you fall, you're standing firm, okay? But then you need to make sure that your actions are not causing someone else to fall.
That's right.
True.
And you know, we've gotten a lot of pushback on that.
Yep.
You know, we've gotten a lot of pushback on situations where people are like, well, listen, I can do what I want. I mean, I have freedom in Christ here. No, that's not freedom in Christ. You can't do what you want. If something you're doing is going to make someone near you or next to you fall, then the Bible says you shouldn't be doing it.
Sin.
Yep.
That's right.
It says it's sin, plain and simple. It says you should not be doing it. And obviously, you know, the effect on our recovery, guys, and this is what we're always looking for. But I think it's and like I said earlier, depending on how much time you have in recovery, it's not a case of where, okay, I have 20 some odd years in recovery and I'm just kind of white knuckling it. No, I'm 20 years in recovery and I want to be the best that God wants me to be.
Right.
I want to be able to serve Him as best as possible. Okay, so I want to be able to see these things. I want to be able to see if stuff is getting into my life that shouldn't be there. I want to catch it. You know, what it talks about in the beginning, it's like remediation. It's like I want to catch it with preemptive. It talks about preemptive action. So preemptive means, you know, I want to preempt this. I want to deal with this before it actually becomes an issue. Okay,
Good.
that's what's so important. So so in mitigating the risk, we talk about mitigating. Okay, what do we do in order to minimize or to deal with the risk we find ourselves in? Well, you know, we talk about one of our traditions very clearly here is willingness to change. Dealing with risk, dealing with things that come up, you have to be willing to change. We talk when we're studying the Bible with people, when people come in a group, we talk about people, places, things, right?
Yep.
We've talked about it before.
Yep.
It's very solid advice. People, places, things. Those are the things that can drag you back into using again. Are you going to hang around with the same people you hung around with? Are you going to go to the same places you went? Are you going to be doing the same things you did when you were using? And it's like if we are, our chances of picking back up and using, I mean, just skyrocket. Excellent. You know? Totally raised. And it's like, so if we find ourselves facing these risks of, one situation where Facebook, classic example, people are insane on Facebook.
Yes.
They are.
Yes.
You got what they call keyboard warriors, right? I mean, they say stuff on Facebook they never say to your face.
Right.
Right.
It really should be called behind your back book.
Oh,
Okay?
right.
Because it's a situation where, people just get really brave when they get behind a keyboard. And they hit submit long before they think about it. Okay? And once it's out there, it's out there.
Yeah.
But you have, people who need to change your world, need to make sure that what we're thinking is in line with what God wants.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And making sure that that's really solid.
Yes.
Okay? And if we feel like, man, well, I don't want to lose this. I have a problem with surrendering this. Well, that you need to sit down with God and figure that out, and really determine, man, what's happening with that, because we need to be ready to change anything to follow Jesus, right? Isn't that what we teach people? They left their nets, they left their father in the boat and followed Jesus, right? We need to drop whatever we're doing and follow Jesus, right? Whatever it is in our characters that need to say, do I need to change where I live? Do I need to change my job? Do I need to change relationships? Whatever I need to do to mitigate that risk, that's what I need to be willing to do. Develop healthy habits, okay? Are we developing healthy habits? It's tough. I mean, I try to go to the gym 3 days a week. Man, I look at those machines and I'm like, I hate you. I'm like, gyms bore the heck out. They bore the living daylights out of me. But at least on my job, which is great, there's TV screens, so I can actually turn around and plug in and watch a TV show while I'm working out. It's so lazy. I mean, I'm working out and I'm watching TV at the same time. Go figure. Welcome to America, right? The other thing is minimizing risk, changing your attitude. These are things that you have to look at, okay? Because the risk is too great. It's the risk versus reward. There is no reward. If I'm going to go back and use again, if I'm going to start heading down that road, the risk is far too great. It's massive, okay? So I need to be prepared to do whatever I can to stop that, okay? So I want to just encourage us and challenge us, right? Take a life search. Look at your actions. Look at the things you do each day. Where is the risk? Is there any risk in what you're doing? Talk to friends. Have them give their input on what you're doing and things you're doing. And mitigate the risk in your life. The risk that's going to pull you away from God, that's going to pull you away from your sobriety. Mitigate that risk, deal with it, and to God be the glory. Amen?
Yes.